Welcome to Soltron. This is the video review for the Galaxy Guards. That's what KR Brickbot tells me these are called in Korea. This is a Chinese line, so I don't actually know what the original name is. You could also call them Retrobots. Here's a look at the instructions, so if anybody can read that, that's probably the name of the show. And I don't know what the name of the company is, maybe that's this character here. But pretty basic instructions, and this has the transformation for all 5 characters. There's really nothing special or interesting going on there. It's pretty basic how they transform. Here's a size comparison. They're pretty much Voyager sized in terms of their bulk, even though they're a little bit shorter. Alright, so let's start with this guy. So KR Brickbot says this guy's name is Red, and you can tell he's a fire truck. So the aesthetic on these is really cool, just like old-fashioned retro robots, and they have like clear plastic for the windows. But they're very basic. And he's got kind of like these oxygen tanks on the back. So his articulation is really simple. This goes 360. He's got kind of a butterfly joint for the transformation. The wrist does pivot down for transformation. Nothing on the head. They do have waist joints, which is pretty surprising. And this guy does have like a forward bending knee and a backward bending. So he does kind of have like a leg articulation. And then he's got an outward kick as well. So not too bad on the articulation. No elbow though, which is definitely a minus. And then nothing on the toes. Transformation on these is really simple. So the hands just pivot down. The toes will also pivot. And then the transformation for these is all pretty much the same. So his backpack gets out of the way, and that allows the waist to pivot back. And then he's got like a transformation, so as you pivot that back, his head is automatically going to recess in the chest. And it automatically transforms when you put it up too. So that's a pretty cool gimmick. And that's pretty fun. And then you just clip the 2 legs together. You just use this accordion hinge here and fold back the arms into place. And there you have his fire truck mode. And then he's got a telescoping ladder as well. So that just telescopes out. No rotation, very basic. Okay, next we have Blue. So you can take a look at his aesthetic. I like that he's got kind of this unibrow going on and this bold nose, so his face is a little bit different. And then his articulation is all the same, so 360 on the arm, he's got a pivot on the wrist, he's got universal hips that go out, and then no rotation on the hips, but it does move forward a very little bit and backward a very little bit. No knee on this guy. And then again, no head articulation. So transformation is pretty much the same. You're going to rotate the arms down this time though. Rotate the fists up so they're out of the way. And then his hips also have rotation, and those are going to rotate up. And then as that happens, his head doesn't collapse, so you have to manually do that. And then he's got the transformation gimmick is when you transform him into a robot, his head will pop out on a spring. So you push that down. And then the hips move out like this, so it kind of connects to this side fender here. And then the toes are just going to point up to kind of clean up. And now you have this interesting futuristic cop car. So very streamlined and interesting looking. Okay, and then we'll go for, this guy's name is Yellow. So you can see he's like the bruiser of the group. Very bulky looking, very clean again, no kibble. His arms do kind of a 360. The joint's kind of in a weird place. It's in the middle of his waist right here. But you kind of can't tell. It's pretty well done. And then he's got all the scoop is kind of just on the back here. No head articulation. This one's also got a waist. And he's got universal hips that go out and then forward a little bit. And it looks like he has a knee, but he actually doesn't. No knees. Okay, so his transformation is basically the same again. Pivot his little pincers into place. And then you're going to rotate the wheel of his arm so it's down. and that's going to bring the scoop forward. And then for his legs, those are going to sandwich together again, and his hips are going to rotate up. And while that happens, you can see his head recesses in. And then you need to fold up the toes to the back again. And then finally, on this accordion hinge, just accordion the arms into these gaps on the side. And then the scoop kind of just clips together in the front. So there's his look. Okay, so next, this one is not called pink. I've been told this one is called MD1. And this one has a really just amazing aesthetic to it. You can't turn the head at all, unfortunately, but it's really cool how the eyes are separate from the head. It's just, what a really interesting look, and thankfully she has different kind of pincers, but they're kind of the same at the same time. Her articulation is way more limited. She can only fold her arms this much unless you pivot it forward, which is kind of for transformation, and then you can get the full range. And legs are on a universal joint again. They go out one click, and then they kind of do kick forward a little bit, and then back. And then she also has knees for whatever reason. It's kind of pointless. So for her transformation, you just clip the two legs together, and then the arms fold forward, and then they're spring-loaded on these little buttons here. So that's kind of a fun gimmick to play with. And then the wheels on the pincers are going to fold down to match up with the wheels here. And then she's going to just turn over to her stomach, and then you just spread out these helicopter blades. And that's pretty much it for her transformation. Nothing too special. This alt mode is kind of phoned in. There's not really much going on here. Okay, and then finally we get the last robot called Rookie. And he's got 360 on the arms as well, no elbow. His pincers actually fold sideways instead of the other way. This guy does actually have head articulation, surprisingly. His face is really interesting. He's got textured eyes that are fun to scratch, and he's got antenna that can be moved around. He's got a little bit of grime on him, but I think a magic eraser, if you just really lightly push it, you can clean up his face much nicer. But the paintwork is pretty decent for the most part. He's got universal... Well, actually, he's only got a pivot outward on the hips, and then he's got this joint here, which allows him to kick forward, and then he can kick back a little bit. But you can see there's a bunch of junk on the back of his legs here and on his back, so he really can't get much backwards motion. And that's about it for his articulation. So his transformation is also very basic. You're going to take this whole shell on his back, rotate it up, and that's going to eventually cover his head, so you need to move his antenna down. And then bring that basically into position. You're going to, again, sandwich the legs, push down these little feet, or push them up so they're hidden, and then you rotate this, and he also has a waist joint. You rotate this up, and then his head doesn't have a transformation gimmick, so it's still going to be just hanging out there. And then you're going to close up this top half, and then again we have an accordion joint for the arms to clean up these side portions, and then the little hands are just going to fold up for clearance. And then there's his truck mode. Okay, and here's the whole set. They look really good together. Their aesthetics definitely match. And then compared to a deluxe size figure, they are significantly bigger. They are Voyager size, like an Optimus Prime would be about this size. They're looking really good. In hand, these guys feel pretty great, and they're simple to transform. So if you have a girlfriend, these are great figures to introduce her to, because they're simple to transform, they feel good, they're cute, the aesthetic is really great. So in hand, I would say that these guys are an 8. They feel very solid, they don't feel very knockoff-ish at all. And as for the alt modes aren't very impressive. Like, really, these alt modes are pretty basic. They're kind of a 5. None of them look like they're meant to be vehicles. Like this, you could just tell that this is going to transform. It just doesn't look right. It doesn't really look like a truck at all. And then this is just kind of put together. But the robot modes, I would say, are definitely a 10. They're just really incredible looking robots. The transformations are pretty fun and basic. Like, a child could definitely do these transformations. So I'd say for the fun factor, they're probably a good 7. They're a little bit too basic to be like really fun or challenging. I'm going to put the link in the description so that you can order from Sirtoys. But these guys are just really charming looking. They look great on a shelf. These aren't my normal type of robots, but I think I'm going to end up keeping these guys just because, I don't know, they just kind of bring me joy just looking at them. They're so simple and charming.